Have you ever wondered why French butter tastes unlike any other butter in the world? There's a reason chefs, bakers, and food lovers across the United States go out of their way to import it. Imagine slicing into a warm baguette and spreading on a golden pat of butter so rich, so velvety, and so flavorful that it seems almost too indulgent to be real. French butter isn't just food, it's a cultural symbol, a craft perfected over centuries, and a taste that carries the essence of France's lush pastures straight to your plate. Today we're stepping behind the doors of one of the oldest butter factories in Brittany, a region that has defined the art of dairy, to uncover the secrets of how this extraordinary delicacy is made. From the green rolling hills where contented cows graze to the meticulous process inside the creamery, this journey will forever change how you think about something as simple as butter. Butter may feel like an everyday staple, but in France it holds a place of honor at the table. On average, French people consume nearly 8 kilograms of butter every year, the highest in the European Union, and they treat it with the same respect Americans might give a fine steak or a glass of bourbon. The history of French butter stretches back centuries, rooted in rural traditions where families relied on milk not just for sustenance but as a cornerstone of local economies. By the 12th and 13th centuries, communities across France were churning butter, originally as a replacement for animal fats or olive oil during periods of religious fasting. What started as a necessity slowly evolved into an art form, with each region developing its own distinctive flavors, textures, and methods. Normandy and Brittany quickly rose to the top, their cool climates and lush grasslands producing dairy cows of exceptional quality. Over time, these regions became synonymous with butter itself. The Industrial Revolution of the 19th century changed everything. New technologies like the mechanical butter churn allowed farmers and factories to produce butter on a much larger scale while maintaining quality. By the 20th century, French butter wasn't just consumed locally, it was exported worldwide, landing on the tables of aristocrats, restaurateurs, and everyday families alike. The flavor was so distinctive, so rich compared to other butters, that it earned a permanent reputation as the gold standard. Even today, many Americans prefer French butter for baking and cooking, because its higher fat content and cultured tang elevate everything from croissants to sauces. Ask any pastry chef in New York or Los Angeles, and they'll likely tell you, nothing compares to a block of true French butter. But what exactly makes French butter so different from the sticks we usually buy in American supermarkets? To answer that, we need to go straight to the source, the farms of Brittany, where the process begins each morning as the sun rises over green fields dotted with gentle, fawn-colored dairy cows. These cows aren't just ordinary livestock, they are the pride of French farmers, selectively bred for generations to produce milk with the perfect balance of cream and flavor. Each cow yields about 25 to 30 liters of milk a day, and every liter can be transformed into roughly 250 grams of butter. The farmers treat their cows with extraordinary care, because the quality of the milk determines everything that follows. Once collected, the milk is handled with almost obsessive attention to freshness. Farmers gather it in the early hours of the morning when temperatures are cool, and immediately deliver it to the factory in insulated tanks. There, the milk is stored in chilled vats to prevent oxidation and preserve its delicate flavor. Nothing is rushed. Every step is designed to protect the natural integrity of the milk, because one of the secrets of French butter is that it relies less on additives or shortcuts and more on the inherent richness of the raw material itself. When you taste French butter, you're really tasting the fields, the cows, and the tradition of the land it comes from. The next stage is cream separation, where the milk is carefully poured into processing vats. Using a centrifuge, the cream is divided from the liquid portion or skim milk. The cream is what will eventually become butter, while the remaining buttermilk is collected and used for other products. Unlike in mass-produced butters, where speed is everything, French factories take their time, keeping the cream at controlled, low temperatures to preserve a soft, luxurious texture. At this stage, something unique happens. Cultures are added. This is one of the defining differences between French butter and most American varieties. By adding live cultures, similar to those used in yogurt, the cream develops a subtle tang and complexity that deepen as it matures. This cultured butter has a flavor profile that's slightly nutty, slightly tangy, and profoundly rich, setting it apart from the sweet cream butter most Americans are used to. Once the cream has rested and fermented just enough to develop its signature taste, it's transferred into churning vats. Here, the transformation takes place. The cream is agitated until the fat molecules clump together, separating from the liquid buttermilk. Watching this process is mesmerizing. It starts as a smooth, thick cream and slowly turns grainy, then lumpy, until suddenly golden clumps of butter begin to form. For centuries, this step was done by hand, with farmers rhythmically working wooden churns, but today machines handle the heavy labor while preserving the same technique. The sound of butter slapping against the sides of the churn has become symbolic of tradition meeting modernity in French dairies. After churning, the butter isn't quite ready yet. It must be kneaded, pressed, and worked to achieve the perfect consistency. This step distributes the fat evenly, removes excess buttermilk, and gives the butter its silky, spreadable texture. The kneading process also influences flavor, because working the butter at just the right temperature helps unlock its aroma. If you've ever noticed how French butter melts more smoothly on warm bread, this is why. It's not just fat content but craftsmanship in how it was handled. In many factories, workers still inspect the butter manually, feeling its texture and testing its aroma before it is molded. Once kneaded, the butter can take on many forms. Some is shaped into large industrial blocks for bakeries and restaurants, while others are pressed into elegant hand-wrapped bricks for everyday consumers. In Brittany, you'll also find butter molded into intricate patterns, a tradition that dates back generations when butter was considered so precious it was decorated like jewelry. Packaging is another important step. Foil or parchment wraps protect the butter from light and air, preserving its freshness. Unlike some American butters that come in simple cardboard boxes, French butter often arrives wrapped in golden foil or rustic paper, a small but powerful signal of the quality within. Now here's a detail many people in the US don't realize. French butter typically contains at least 82% butterfat, compared to about 80% in standard American butter. That may sound like a small difference, but in baking and cooking it's enormous. The higher fat content means less water, which leads to flakier pastries, richer sauces, and a creamier mouthfeel. This is why French croissants practically melt in your mouth, why French sauces have a depth of flavor that's hard to replicate, and why so many professional chefs insist on importing butter from Normandy or Brittany even if it costs more. But beyond numbers and process, French butter carries a cultural significance that can't be measured. In France, butter isn't just a condiment or a cooking fat, it's a symbol of home, of tradition, of indulgence. Families have passed down butter-making techniques like heirlooms, and regional differences are celebrated with pride. In Brittany, for example, salted butter reigns supreme, often with crunchy crystals of sea salt folded right into the golden paste. In Normandy, the preference leans toward unsalted butter, prized for its purity and clean taste. Each variety tells a story of the region it comes from, much like wine or cheese, and is savored with the same reverence. For Americans discovering French butter, the experience often feels like stepping into another culinary universe. The first time you spread a pat of cultured butter on toast, you realize how muted and bland most supermarket butters taste in comparison. It's not just about luxury, it's about reconnecting with a product that has been crafted with patience, tradition, and pride. And while it may feel like an indulgence, French butter is increasingly accessible, found in specialty stores and even larger supermarkets across the US. As more Americans bake at home or explore gourmet cooking, demand for authentic French butter continues to grow. What began centuries ago in small rural communities has now become a global delicacy, cherished across continents. From the rolling fields of Brittany to a breakfast table in New York, French butter has bridged cultures and captured hearts. Its journey is a reminder that sometimes the simplest foods hold the greatest depth, and that tradition, when preserved with care, can turn something ordinary into something truly extraordinary. Have you ever wondered why chefs around the world rave about French butter, and why it carries such a reputation for luxury that people willingly pay twice as much for it as regular butter? It's not just hype, and it's certainly not a simple matter of branding. French butter has earned its place at the top of the culinary world because of the extraordinary care that goes into its production, the centuries of tradition behind it, and the sensory experience it delivers from the very first bite. Imagine spreading a silky golden pat of French butter onto warm bread, the aroma rising, the flavor lingering, the texture so creamy it feels almost sinful. That's not an accident. It's the result of a meticulous process that has been refined through generations, blending old-world craftsmanship with modern technology to create something truly unforgettable. At its core, French butter is still made from the simplest of ingredients: fresh cream, salt, and sometimes subtle additions like herbs or spices. But the process is what transforms these everyday inputs into something exceptional. Unlike mass-produced butter that is churned quickly and packaged for efficiency, French butter undergoes additional kneading and refinement stages. Once the cream has been churned into butter and the buttermilk separated, artisans take the butter and work it again by hand or with specialized machines. This kneading is not about mixing, it's about texture. Each press, fold, and turn aligns the butter's structure, eliminating air pockets and creating a consistency so smooth it practically glides across the palate. The process also intensifies the flavor, allowing the natural richness of the cream to shine through. This attention to detail comes at a price. A small 125-gram portion of French butter can cost around €4, which is roughly double the price of a high-quality organic butter you might pick up at a US supermarket. But here's the thing, once you've tried it, you understand why. It's not just butter, it's a sensory indulgence, something reserved for special occasions, elegant dinners, or simply for those who appreciate the finer things in life. Much like a vintage wine and aged cheese, or a handcrafted chocolate, French butter is a luxury item. And just like those other delicacies, the experience it offers justifies the higher price tag. The magic isn't only in the kneading, it's also in the flavoring. Traditional French butter often carries a rich, slightly tangy aroma that sets it apart from the milder butters most Americans are familiar with. This comes from the use of cultured cream, which is cream that has been allowed to ferment slightly before churning. That fermentation introduces natural lactic acids, giving the butter a deeper, more complex taste profile. On top of this, salt is added at just the right stage to enhance the flavor while helping preserve freshness. Unlike salted butter in the United States, which can sometimes taste overly salty or inconsistent, French salted butter strikes a perfect balance. Every bite feels deliberate, nuanced, and carefully crafted. Modern producers in France also love to experiment with flavors, and the variety available might surprise you. You can find butters infused with smoked salt, seaweed, truffle, tomato, and basil, or even exotic touches like Japanese yuzu. Imagine tossing hot pasta with a spoonful of tomato basil French butter, or spreading seaweed butter onto grilled seafood. It's culinary innovation at its finest. These variations aren't just gimmicks. They expand the range of butter from a simple spread into a versatile ingredient that can elevate both traditional French recipes and everyday American cooking. Equally important is the shaping and packaging stage, where artistry meets practicality. Unlike factory-standard butter sticks in American supermarkets, French butter is often shaped by hand, with each portion carefully weighed and molded. Some producers go so far as to personalize their butter with embossed logos, decorative stamps, or even initials, making each block feel like a signature creation. It's a detail that speaks volumes about the pride these artisans take in their craft. Once shaped, the butter is packaged in either wax paper, small wooden boxes, or sturdy tubs, each clearly labeled with production dates, expiration dates, and nutritional information. This not only ensures safety and traceability but also reflects the respect given to the consumer, who is treated less like a buyer and more like a participant in a cultural tradition. But perhaps what makes French butter so special is not just how it tastes or looks, but the values behind its production. In France, butter making is deeply intertwined with a commitment to quality, sustainability, and respect for the land. Many dairies follow strict animal welfare standards, ensuring cows graze on open pastures and are treated with care. Renewable energy sources are increasingly used in production facilities, and green technologies help minimize the environmental footprint. For many French producers, making butter isn't just about creating a food product. It's about preserving a way of life, respecting natural resources, and passing down a legacy that connects farms, families, and communities. This deep cultural significance is something you feel when you taste French butter. It's more than just dairy fat whipped into a solid. It's tradition, history, and artistry combined. The French have been perfecting butter making for centuries, and certain regions, like Normandy and Brittany, are especially renowned for producing some of the world's finest varieties. The lush green fields, the cool coastal climate, and the rich grazing lands contribute to cream that is naturally sweeter and more flavorful. In many ways, French butter tells the story of its terroir, the unique environment and conditions of the place where it's made. Just as wine experts talk about the soul of a vineyard, butter enthusiasts can often detect subtle regional differences that make each butter unique. For U.S. audiences who may be used to butter as a standard ingredient rather than a star of the show, discovering French butter can be a revelation. It transforms simple foods. A slice of fresh sourdough bread becomes gourmet with just a swipe. A plain baked potato turns luxurious when topped with a pat of cultured French butter. Even steamed vegetables or scrambled eggs become elevated, proof that the right butter can make everyday meals feel like fine dining. This isn't about pretentiousness, it's about recognizing how one ingredient, when made with care, can redefine your entire eating experience. And while many Americans are increasingly interested in organic, artisanal, and locally produced foods, French butter offers a perfect example of why craftsmanship matters. Yes, it costs more. Yes, it might feel indulgent. But it also delivers unmatched quality. In an age where mass production often sacrifices flavor and tradition for efficiency, French butter reminds us of the value of slowing down, of savoring, of choosing food that nourishes not just the body but also the soul. So the next time you come across French butter in your local gourmet shop or international grocery section, take a moment to consider what's inside that package. It's not just butter. It's the result of generations of expertise, of cows grazing on lush pastures, of farmers dedicated to their craft, of artisans kneading and shaping by hand, of environmental stewardship, and of a national culture that refuses to compromise on taste and quality. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the fascinating world of French butter. If you're as intrigued as we are by the blend of technology, tradition, and artistry that goes into this humble yet luxurious food, we invite you to share your thoughts. Have you ever tried French butter? Did it surprise you with its richness and depth? And how would you use it, in baking, in cooking, or simply as a spread on warm bread? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this exploration into the world of gourmet foods, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more culinary journeys that bring the world's finest traditions right to your table.